to start with, there's an interesting trend going on right now. I feel like we might be witnessing the end of the PC era, which, I mean, finally, I do think that it's going to be a lot more fun than the PC era has been. So, I mean, it's been since Obama, so like 2012 at least, probably earlier than that. We've been in this PC era in the United States. And I really think that's coming to an end. I've seen some things that are showing me that I think we're actually going back to like a late 90s mindset where, things were pretty much open for grabs. And if anyone noticed, there's a lot of 90s stuff coming back right now. I know it's always about, longing for your childhood and stuff like that, and Hollywood's great at doing that and cashing in on that, but this seems a little different to me. And I can give 100 examples of why I'm thinking that, but not really the point of this video that I wanted to make. Going along these lines, if anyone watches Joe Rogan, which I usually, I'm not a fan of Joe Rogan to, a certain extent. I don't think he's much of a truther or anything like that. I think he's a comedian that makes a lot of money, and there's many of those out there. But I have put some specific comedians on some of my videos. Norm Macdonald, George Carlin. Another comedian that I have listened to hours of him talk is Dick Gregory. He was a black comedian from the 50s. He ran for president in the 60s. Very knowledgeable guy. And if anyone wants to hear some of his talks, I highly recommend it, because he says some things, to my point, like Katt Williams has been doing. So Katt Williams was on Joe Rogan, obviously last time I checked, it was like up for 24 hours and had 3 million views. But if you do, I do think it was a good talk, and I like listening to Katt Williams because I think he is in that category with Dick Gregory and George Carlin, even Norm Macdonald, even to a certain extent Louis C.K., but Louis really can't say much nowadays. He kind of lost that card. But prior to what happened to Louis C.K., he was sticking up for a lot of things that most comedians weren't saying. So I do think Katt Williams is in that category with, and if anyone listens to George Carlin, anyone listens to Norm Macdonald, anyone listens to Dick Gregory outside of the comedic arenas, when they're just talking their mind, they have very, very extensive amount of topics that they have a lot of knowledge about, and that's so great. If anyone listened to the Rogan interview with Katt Williams said something very, very profound, and if anyone has gone far down the rabbit holes and searched for answers and looked through the mysteries of the world, they all know this. Joe Rogan, they were talking about Elon Musk, and Joe Rogan said something like, that guy must know everything like a superhero, I think is along the lines of what he said. And Katt Williams shut that down immediately. He said, the funny thing is, the more you know, the less of a superhero, you feel like, or the more you know that you are not a superhero, and it's a humbling experience. Basically, is what he was saying. You don't feel like you're almighty or the one that knows all. You know that you know very little. But the good part is that you finally know something. You know that you finally have learned something, and that's the key. I do think, going back to, I even have it in my description of my channel. How you could type something to kind of describe. It goes back to what the book of the Gospels of Thomas, and what Christ said. If you search, you will find. When you find, you will be disturbed, and then you will reign. And that is so true. Because when you get to a certain point of these topics and these mysteries, it is frightening. It is frightening. It'll shock you to your core. You will be broken mentally, not unrepairably, but it will mess with your it literally shatters your whole world. But then you realize that had to happen, and now you can find what you're looking for. There's a million better ways to say it, but I hope that comes through. Going back to what Katt Williams was talking about, he mentions the Anunnaki, which he's not the first person to mention Anunnaki on Joe Rogan. But it was funny because it was maybe like 10-15 minutes into the 3-hour talk that they had, which was great because they barely talked about comedy. So it was nice hearing just two people talk. And again, this is kind of playing into the non-PC era anymore. Because I don't know how they could have got away with this talk maybe in 2020. They probably wouldn't have been able to have it. And I think Katt Williams would have known that. Hence why I think he's going so hard right now. I think people are seeing that the PC era is done. And now which is going to be a bad thing also. It's going to be good and bad, because you can't go 12 years on a PG, PC mindset, and then all of a sudden flip it on its end to where now it's back to like rated R, rated X, game on. That's going to be interesting how to see how that plays out. And that's completes, that's God, if it's not dielectric, I cannot remember the name, but it is the typical game plan of the right and left. We swing one way for so many years, and we flip it and swing all the way the other way, and that messes with people. God, I can't remember never mind. But going back to what Katt was saying, so he talks about Anunnaki, and he had a necklace, a chain on with a big symbol on it, and he brought up the fact that he made the symbol himself out of the style of what the Anunnaki wear around their wrist, which I thought was pretty interesting, because a lot of people, talk about Anunnaki, and that's one thing that gets me: the wrist, the pine cone, the handbag, and what the leg looks like. Because if you look at those features, they usually have at least 2 out of those 4 features. It's either they have wristwatch on, something that looks like a wristwatch, a pine cone looking thing in their hand, or a handbag, or they have a very interesting looking leg sticking out. You know, one leg's usually covered, one leg usually is not covered. And to me, that looks mechanical. It looks, you know, to me, that's a great way to show people that obviously technology's been around, because I don't care if that was drawn in 1800s, they're drawing a mechanical leg. And you know, I don't think it's just a drawing. I think that's what really was being seen. But he thinks that was a compass that can actually manipulate time as far as the wristwatch thing goes, which I think is a good theory. Again, I think there's more going on. But the other thing he mentions, Katt Williams, is homunculus, which I guarantee 80% of people that watch that, you know, because I was looking through the comments, and you know, there's maybe about 30% of the people that watched that interview that really get what's going on there, but most people are, you know, Katt smoking, or you know, making stupid comments where they're not taking anything seriously. I'm pretty sure Katt Williams has been smoking weed his entire life, so I don't really think he needs weed to get in a mindset like that. So that's kind of stupid if you ask me. But he mentions a homunculus. He actually mentions, which is even funnier in my opinion and creepier, how the Smurfs are based off of the story of what a homunculus is. And he's dead on, in my opinion. Gargamel is absolutely the creator of the Smurfs, if anybody knows the lore of the Smurfs. And guess what he is? You know, a witchcraft-looking dude that, you know, obviously knows alchemy, obviously knows, you know, like, that's built into his character. Give me 1 second. So yeah, he mentions a homunculus and puts it in the realm of that's what the Smurfs are based off of. And again, I think he's dead on about that. But you know, I've known of homunculus probably about 8 years ago, and it was a very weird thing to me. And I'm gonna play a video about it. One of the videos that really I thought just got to the root of what the whole concept of it is, and it's by a channel that I really enjoyed for quite some time, Night Terror channel with Bill Madden, and he was a great channel. He was getting big too right before the whole Trump and breaking up of the internet channels and really cracking down on, you know, false videos or whatever they want to call it. But he was getting really big, and he's got a very, you know, unsolved mystery type way to talk about it. But then I'm going to show something else that is controversial. Not bad, but most people are going to think I'm crazy. Most people are going to think the video that I'm going to show is crazy. But there has to be something going on with not only... I'm going to show a video about the Queen that is connected to the homunculus, in my opinion. Because if you look at the stories of the homunculus, which I will show some, it's usually kings, queens, and high, you know, elitists that want these type of entities around them, or have the capability of creating these type of entities. If this is true, I do believe there is much more to the homunculus myth and lore and possible truth that, you know, needs to be uncovered. But I do think something's there. Again, it's too close to not be. There's too much going on with it to think it's just BS. And the last thing I'll say before the videos is, so the whole theory behind how to create a homunculus is to use, basically, it's the gist of it is, men can't create. You know, they can't give birth. We don't have that capability. Yet, a lot have tried to create using their own semen and blood. And why that's interesting to me is because if anyone grew up in the 90s, as did I, and was a Metallica fan, all one has to do is go and look at the cover of Load, which I'm going to try to find and put a picture of it. And when I was a kid, I thought it was just artwork. I thought it was just kind of something. I didn't even realize what it was. It just looks like kind of artwork. But it is blood, and it is semen mixed together, and they took that for their album cover. What was Metallica doing? You know, why blood and semen? That's a whole other thing, but I do think they're showing you something by that. And is it to do with this type of lore about the homunculus? So, please watch. I do think it is entertaining, and, you know, you might get something out of it. Whether you think I'm crazy, whether you think these people are crazy, whether you think Katt Williams is crazy, I do suggest making, at least seeing the information and making your own judgment off of that. But, take care.
Was to transmute base metals into gold. But some practitioners sought to create life in their laboratories. In English, it was called the sacred art. In German, it was called die Schwarze Kunst, or the black arts. The homunculus is a small but fully formed human being, given its name by Paracelsus in 1532. According to the theory that the male seed is a little man that grows into a child. When the alchemist raised the same seed artificially, it would grow into a homunculus. And there are historical accounts that this was done more than once. The proto-scientific method of Paracelsus is to take the sperm of a man and seal it inside a glass jar. Horse manure is used as the incubating medium because it generates its own heat. Keep the jar buried in horse dung 40 days, or until it comes alive and begins to move, whichever comes first. It will resemble a miniature, transparent human form and must be fed every day with human blood. After 40 weeks, matching the term of a normal human pregnancy, the result will be a small-scale living figure of a man. An alternate method is to inseminate a chicken egg with human sperm. Italy, in the year 897, the head of the Catholic Church, Pope Formosus, had been dead for 1 year. This did not prevent a new pontiff, Pope Stephen, from exhuming the body and putting Formosus on trial for crimes against God. The corpse was dressed in fresh clothes and seated on a throne to face the music. The former pope was accused of creating small beings in jars including one with large eyes, which was intelligent. John Dee of England, in 1588, was appointed royal physician to Queen Elizabeth I. Because of their tiny size, the homunculi which he created could easily hide themselves almost anywhere. Dr. Dee's creature did not live long when removed from its glass container, but it would live long enough to spy upon the enemies of the Queen and report back on conversations overheard. In France, another alchemist, Dr. Pierre Borel, became royal physician to King Louis XIV in 1654. Using an early genetic technique, he developed a homunculus from a sample of blood alone. At maturity, it cast glowing red beams from its eyes, and it was exhibited before the full court of King Louis. The Count of Tyrol in Austria, Johann von Kufstein, joined forces with Italian mystic and Rosicrucian Abbe Gelani in 1775 to create 10 of the creatures at the same time, kept in glass retorts at a Masonic lodge in Vienna. Each homunculus was about 1 foot tall and had its own personality. Count von Kufstein gave them names. The Devil, the Angel, the King, the Queen, the Priest, the Nun, the Artist, the Farmhand, the Master, and the Servant. The Count had tiny suits of clothing made for them, appropriate to their station. They were seen by the local dignitaries, Count Max Lamberg and Count Franz von Thun. However, the homunculi were not widely shared because their most valuable asset was the ability to foresee the future. The male desire to reproduce without female partnership continues today, as modern scientists rear test tube babies and experiment with human cloning.
Tiny as a mouse, the palace is a little people's zoo. They're the ones who tell me what to do. Little people. That was just lovely. Hi everybody, this is Roger in Kansas City, and today we're here with Queen Elizabeth II and her little friends. Her little friends are always with her. They are usually in very conspicuous places, even though you don't pick it up consciously. This is a picture from 1957 from the Queen's first televised Christmas message. There's something very strange going on. There's a lot of things in this picture, and as usual, we're going to take a closer look at the bouquet on the desk. Let's just get going. Oh, you're looking awfully nice today, Your Majesty. Here we go. Here's our first close-up. As you can see, there's a little more than flowers in here. There is some foliage, like holly leaves, but that's about it. Part of the trick is to just make this blend into something that you wouldn't give a second thought about. And usually, a flower bouquet or a plant works great. We have this guy here. He's looking at the Queen. If he were looking directly towards you, that would be his front view there. A character right here, it looks like he's blowing a horn, and he's looking off that direction. We have this character here, 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 and here. We have this little stegosaurus looking guy and little droopy looking thing over here, and I have no clue what that is, so we'll just focus on this. Let me take it up one more notch. And that's a pretty good picture. All right, let's go to our next photo. Now zooming in a little closer, we can see these figures here, and I think some are like two-dimensional cutouts. I think some are three-dimensional little dolls, figurines of some type, but I think it's very possible that some of them are also physically living beings of some sort. And I think these two guys here are good candidates for that classification. Let me zoom in a little closer. There's just something that looks biologically believable about them. Here they are again. And a little closer. Okay, so let's go to our third view of this area. So let's finish up the 1957 portion of the video with this very good picture. I literally have hundreds of views of this bouquet that I've worked with, but I think you have the idea, and you'll get the idea as we progress throughout the video. So let's enlarge this a little bit. You can see that there are figures in front of the queen. Going up a notch, you can start to make out quite a few very clear figures in this one. And this person is wearing a hat with this frilly thing on it. This guy here looks like he's got a mohawk. He's sort of a creepy looking guy. This person is doing something. One more time. I think that would pretty much sum things up. There's something going on here. They're showing this to us for a particular reason. I'm not sure what it is. So let's just continue. Let's go to our next picture. This next photograph is undated, but you can tell that it's within the past few years. We're going to take a closer look at this floral bouquet right here. I have blurred out this individual's face to protect the innocent. I'm not saying that anyone in this picture is not innocent. Moving on. So here's a close-up of the bouquet. Let me preface, I would have never caught any of this had the 1957 picture not been in black and white. It showed a lot more detail, but I think you can see quite a bit in this picture. Let me take it up a notch. You know, my parents used to own some florist shops, so I guess that gives me a little bit of an edge on this. But I can tell you with certainty, no one ever called in and ordered a bouquet that said, and while you're at it, could you throw in a couple of Loch Ness monsters and a little boy's head and some other people just in the bouquet? And yeah, it might cost some extra, but I guess we could. And let's make it a little bigger. Yeah. What do you think of that? Let's go to a black and white version of the same picture. Here's the photograph in black and white. Let me enlarge it a little bit. As you can see, I think you can see quite a bit more detail. Let's look at this guy here. Here's his head, body. It looks like he's wearing almost like a Mason's apron, even though that doesn't look like a Masonic emblem. It looks more like a Star of David, but that's just what it looks like to me. See a number of images. See this guy? Is he waving at us? I do believe he is. Then we have these figures all throughout. He's wearing a hat. Big facial features here. There's our Loch Ness, Mr. and Mrs. Loch Ness monster. There's the little boy. And as usual, you'll probably see more than I'm pointing out, but I'm just letting you take a good look. So there it is. I'll take it up a little bigger just for a second. See if we can bring anything else out. There's that guy there. It looks like he has an emblem on his shirt as well. There's the friendly guy. Okay. So let's go on to our next photograph. This will be the third and final photograph we're looking at today. This is a photograph of the Queen during her 90th birthday. She is in the company of this gentleman to her right, your left. I think he is probably one of the palace butlers. He's in quite a few photographs over the years with her. She seems to be pretty fond of the guy, and likewise with him. Well, no telling. Anyway, if you haven't already figured it out, we'll be taking a closer look at this bouquet on the table in between the two. So let's take a closer look. Here's a close-up of the floral arrangement in question. I think, it's just my opinion, that they either put these other objects in that are already colorized to match the flowers in there, or they do some colorization in post-production. And I think it's the latter, because the bouquets are almost invariably, they are almost a little bit out of focus with the rest of the picture, and they can do that. All right, so there's the picture we're going to take a look at. Let's go to black and white. Here's our black and white photo. Before we get too involved, I want you to look at this, what appears to be a face wearing a hat. Let me tell you something about the hat. This cap is called a Glengarry cap. It's worn by the Scottish military or for civilian Highland dress. It's also worn by the Royal Regiment of Scotland. Back to the picture. So I don't think it would be so far-fetched to say that is at least a representation of a Glengarry cap. It would certainly fit the setting, considering the two people sitting on each side of it. The glasses here, a lot of people would think that's a reflection from whatever's behind it. I do not think that's the case. I have run into this a few times before on TV shows where they do the exact same thing. They'll put something in a glass of water or a clear container. You would never really notice it, but they are there. We have these guys here. We have this little guy, maybe he's coming up for air. Then I had to really look at this. Do you remember those first little guys at the beginning that had the little eye and the pointy nose? At first I thought this was like one character, but no, this is the same character that we saw in the 1957 at the picture that we started with. Now that might be his great-grandson, or it might be him, I don't know. But behind it, or him, is we have another character, more humanoid, wearing a hat. So we have this guy here, and then we have the little non-human looking guy here. Okay, so you ought to be me. All right, so then we have all these other strange figures throughout. It was a little blurry, but it was good enough to go with. We have this guy up here going, hey, Prince Charles. Yeah, I know he is. Okay, and we have this little face here, and you may see some things that I'm not pointing out. Okay, so there you are. Let's go back and look at mother and son, or say bye to mother and son on our way out. So here we are. Technically, this was a very difficult video to put together, and it took a lot longer than I thought it would, but I think it came out decently. The two characters here obviously know what's going on, as do quite a few other people in the world. Anyway, I hope you like the video. I hope you share the video. If you haven't been...
So here's the real video, real footage of what he was looking at, the first picture that Roger was looking at. And I know Roger's silly, but if you watch his channel, that's all I would say, is just watch his channel. I'll let this play, but that does not look like a bouquet. He is right about that. And there does seem to be 2 little figures in there at least. But if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Take care.